Hey everybody, this is Casey back again with Aligned Astrology. And today we're going to talk about the opposition between Mercury, which is Cazimi, and the planet Uranus in Taurus. Now, today is November 20th, and today it is our new moon in Scorpio. In our previous video, we talked about the grand water trine, including Jupiter, Saturn, and this new moon, Mercury Cazimi, going on. So there's a whole lot of different things going on. And today I wanted to give some insight about the opposition that Uranus is inflicting or imparting on this new moon in Mercury Cazimi. We're going to focus on that Mercury today. And when we pull up the chart, we're going to talk about how this opposition is basically ushering in Uranus into Gemini, which is the home of Mercury. And it's not a coincidence because there happens to be no coincidences in astrology. It's not a coincidence that these two planets are in opposition. They're carrying the energy of Saturn when they're in a planetary opposition. So the opposition is a challenging or malefic aspect. So when two planets are in opposition to one another, they have they're not seeing eye to eye. They have, well, of course they can see right across from one another, but they have conflicting interests. But this can be very beneficial. We always look at astrology, and some people like to think good and bad in astrology, but there's not necessarily anything that can be considered good or bad in astrology. When we start to look at the traditional understandings of astrology, we do use the terminologies good and bad in order to determine the nature of a planet and what it is meant to express. But we can determine from our own waking lives that when we do hard things consistently, we gain positive results. So when these two planets are in an opposition, Mercury, the planet of communication, the mind, it can be considered the planet that governs our movement. And then in an opposition with the planet Uranus, which can be the revolutionary planet or the planet of insight, liberation, clarity. Now, both of these planets come together and they create dramatic clarities and insights. It can be striking ideas, right? Like all of a sudden you just wake up and say, Eureka, I got it. I understand what I need to do now. When we have Mercury Cazimi, that Mercury is carrying that particular energy to where we can gain an insight to know exactly what we need to do. And then in opposition with the planet Uranus, we might just take a 180-degree turn and go an entirely different direction. We might stand against what we first stood for. So when we start to look at the chart, we'll gain some insight on how this lunation cycle, which is started with the beginning of this new moon here, and it will last for 6 months, and we will see the full moon in Scorpio, which will be on May 1st, 2026. And a couple of days after, let's say 2 weeks or so, and we'll pull up the chart so we can see the exact days that Uranus that we're looking at in the last degrees of Taurus will be moving into the sign of Gemini, the home of Mercury. So right now they're having a conversation that's going to play its part in all of our lives individually, but all of our lives collectively as well. Now, I'm not a modern astrologer. I'm a traditional astrologer, but I do take insight or am mindful of our daily waking lives and the things that we go through as people in society. So when we look at the planet Uranus and Taurus, it's been here for about the last 7 years or so. And it has basically molded our financial systems up to the point that they're in now. So this planet Uranus at the final degrees of the sign of Taurus is tying up loose ends, is giving us the opportunity to look at our financial structures and notice what they've become to extract the benefit, the good from them, and to let all the rest go. Because when Uranus leaves Taurus and enters into Gemini, it's going to change our understanding of what it means to communicate with one another, to stand for something, to be in a particular sort of system. So it'll be very interesting to talk about that later on as things unfold more. But today we're going to look at the different charts and see the unfoldment of this lunation cycle so we can get an idea of really seeing astrology for what it is, not as something linear, but as a cyclical experience that happens again and again. And it takes time, of course, but we just get to be a part of it. So I'm going to pull up the chart so we can look together at the new moon. So we have our new moon here. We've talked about this. We've looked at it already in our previous video. New moon in Scorpio at 28 degrees. Mercury Cazimi right at 28 degrees. Now, to give a little bit more insight about Cazimi, because that might sound like a new word for some of us. Cazimi is when a planet is in the same degree, and hopefully you can see my drawings on this screen. For some reason, they weren't popping up previously, so hopefully they work. But like I was saying, in regards to Cazimi, it is when a planet is in the same degree as the sun and within 8 minutes of the sun. So just about we've experienced this Mercury Cazimi during the new moon. And in opposition with Mercury, we have Uranus right at the 29th degree. So both of these planets are retrograde now, right now, Mercury and Uranus. So that means they're taking time to go over revisions, to rethink things, to go back to the drawing board, to create a new plan. And I wanted to speak specifically about the oppositional aspect because these two planets are in an opposition. Oppositions carry the energy of Saturn. And it's very interesting that in our grand water trine, we have Saturn as well, which is also retrograde. Just to speak, because we're talking about the grand water trine, Jupiter is retrograde too. So we have all these planets in this mix of this new moon that are in retrograde position. So this is a time of going inward. And we spoke about it in a previous video. It can be very emotionally internal. And it can be a very stabilizing experience. Of course, sometimes we have to hit rock bottom emotionally in order to begin to build from the ground up. But when we think about the opposition, it carries the energy of Saturn. And when we think about Saturn, we can look at Saturn as the time lord, though the one who sets boundaries, the one who says, no, 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 not just yet. We have something to do before you can take action, before you can move forward. So these two planets are in an opposition to tie up loose ends, to have a conversation, and then express themselves over the next 6 months through the this lunation cycle. Of course, there'll be more new moons and full moons, always having many different aspects from planet to planet. But it's like a big play, a big story that all these planets are conversing in order for us to experience in our own particular lives. So as this lunation cycle unfolds, we're going to move it forward just a bit and see that the time lord, Saturn, gives us the opportunity to slow down a bit. Living in this modern age society, everybody feels like we need to rush and we need to make things happen. But when everything's retrograde, when planets are in retrograde, it's a time to go inward, a time to sit with yourself and determine what matters most, what direction you really want to go in, because it's nothing like climbing up the ladder, trying to get to the top of the roof or climbing the mountain. Just to notice when you look over to the side, you realize that is the mountain over there that I want to be on. And then we have to go all the way back down the mountain. We have to go all the way down the ladder in order to start climbing up the one that we want to ascend on. So let's move forward. In my notes, I looked and saw that as these planets are retrograde, we move the chart forward a couple of weeks. We'll see Jupiter and Saturn are still closely connected to Mercury when it stations a direct, and that Mercury is going to be moving forward into the opposition once more with the planet Uranus. And it will be on December 10th. So on December 10th, Uranus and Mercury are at 28 degrees. So this is going to be a very important day for us to look at in order to determine what this new moon has began to spell for us, what it has begun to express for us. And of course, we'll have moved into Sagittarius season, where the ruler of this current new moon we're speaking about, Mars, still is. So we talked about Mars yesterday for a moment, and just to express that whatever this new moon is bringing us, Mars is the one pulling the strings. And with a Mars in the energy of Sagittarius, it could be a very blunt and straightforward type of expression that we may be experiencing or that we may be embodying. So it's important to be mindful of these things. And like we said, this new moon is calling for many different planets to be in retrograde. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're supposed to go shout these things from the mountaintops from our soapbox and tell everybody how we feel, but it's an opportunity to take what we learn and to see how we feel and to plan accordingly the actions that we need to take. So that opposition resurfaces, shows itself again on the 10th of December. And then we can move the chart forward. Like I said, there's many different things that are going to happen as time goes on, but we're just looking at that lunation cycle. So we're going to move forward to May 1st because that'll be the full moon in Scorpio. So full moon in Scorpio, I'm just going to get it exact for us so we can see exactly where everything is going to be and at what time it will be there. So about 1 p.m., well, exactly 12:51 p.m. Eastern Direct Time on May 1st, we get to experience the full moon in Scorpio. And this full moon shows us that Uranus has just entered into Gemini. So this completes the lunation cycle and it completes the last few things that Uranus has to tie up in the sign of Taurus. And the way astrology works, there's so many different things going on. Something that shows itself to me is when we were looking at the new moon chart earlier, we saw Venus is also in the mix in Scorpio right now. And when this full moon in Scorpio arises, we see that Venus has moved into the sign of Gemini right along with Uranus. The reason why we're even talking about Venus is because Venus is at home in the sign of Taurus. So Venus correlated with our ideals, our values, our beliefs, can also be correlated with vanity in our life, the things that bring us joy and happiness, the things that we want to receive. It can show that these things that Uranus and Taurus are beginning to finish up are the things that we think we hold dear, the things that we believe we value now. But maybe the conversation the new moon is bringing, or the flashes of insights, or the ideals the new ideals that will come to know and begin to embody are transforming our values, those old ideals into new ones, our beliefs. And when Uranus moves into Gemini, where Venus will be as well, this is going to give us the opportunity to see these things, our experiences, in a whole different light. So it'll be a very interesting thing for us to experience as these next 6 months unfold, passing through this opposition with Uranus, the planet that is a very revolutionary planet. When we think about the planet of Mercury, it just gives us a great insight to understand that just through a conversation with somebody who matters or a relationship that matters, we can take a turn down a road that dramatically transforms our lives, hopefully for the better. So hopefully this makes sense for you. And it will be another addition to understanding how this new moon in Scorpio is showing up for each of us. Just to finish up, we're going to come back to now. And we're going to move through the 12 zodiac signs so we can take a quick understanding of what Uranus might be expressing in each zodiac for us. So to start off with Aries Rising, Uranus is at that 29th degree in the second house of Taurus. So when we begin to understand Uranus and Taurus, like I said, it can be correlated to our financial values as a society. But in this case, as an Aries rising, it'll be correlated with your own particular financial well-being or your skills, talents, and abilities. Maybe this new moon is helping you to turn in a different direction towards the things that you want to embody, the things that you have learned and that you want to share with others. Maybe this is giving you the opportunity to plant those new seeds so you can begin to hold those values dear and allow other people to see you in a different way based off of your financial well-being or the skills that you've created for yourself. We can move forward and we'll just quickly look through all these 12 signs. For the sign of Taurus, you experience this in the first house. And when we have Uranus moving through the first house, it's a dramatic change in our own personal experience, our daily life, our expression, our identity. So Uranus, like I said earlier, is like a 180-degree turn. You get up and you turn the complete opposite direction, whether it's through your beliefs or your values or the way that you communicate. This is giving you the opportunity to be somebody new. Moving forward to Gemini, who will experience this in the 12th house. The 12th house is correlated with our subconscious mind. It can be hidden enemies according to traditional astrology. And usually when we think about our mind, it is our own particular selves. It is ourselves who are our hidden enemies, the way we think about ourselves. That leads us to feel a way about ourselves. That leads us to make decisions based off those thoughts. So this could be a very positive rethinking, a rejuvenation, or a liberation from the mind with Uranus here in the 12th house to think differently, in order to become someone differently. Now we'll move forward. Cancers or Cancer risings are going to be experiencing Uranus in the 11th house of community and good fortune. So it can show that old groups are coming to an end and giving you the opportunity to seek out new groups. It's interesting to always take an insight into the axis that we talk about, the 11th house, 5th house axis. These two houses right across from one another always are connected like two sides of the same coin. So that Uranus in the 11th house is deeply affected by the 5th house topics, such as our own creativity. So our own particular pursuits are what leads us to those new groups of people that we need to be a part of. And being that these planets are retrograde right now, we can already feel that something's coming to an end. We can already feel that something needs to change. So Uranus is here to help us see that more clearly in a direct way. Moving forward for Leo risings, we'll experience this in the 10th house of career. This is how the world sees us and what the world sees us for. Our vocation may take a drastic change. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to lose our job, maybe, but it can mean that we are going to revitalize our business or go in a different direction with the way that we make money or the way that we present ourselves publicly. Moving forward for the Virgo risings, you'll experience this one in the 9th house. And usually when we have Uranus in the 9th house, this is a planet of great insight or revolution. In the 9th house of long distance travel, we could be moving somewhere, or we could come across some information that drastically transforms our whole way of being, our way of thinking, acting, of living. So Uranus here in Taurus, retrograde is pulling those strings right now, and over the next 6 months, this lunation cycle, we'll begin to see those things unfold. And this is how astrology really works when we follow it on a daily basis or a weekly basis and see what the planets are doing, following the moon cycle and seeing just exactly what these planets mean in the different signs. They can show themselves to us, and we can really understand what the purpose of this form of divination is. Moving into the sign of Libra, Uranus is going to be in the 8th house of other people's money. It can also be seen as the house of karma. Like when we think about the idea of karma, people think, oh, something bad's going to happen because I have karma. But karma is simply just the law of cause and effect. Because we take an action, an outcome appears. Because I throw my water bottle up in the air, it's bound to come back down. That's just simply how it works. This can also be seen as the 8th house, can also be seen as the place where we go to receive from others, or the way we are seen by others, the esteem of others. So having this planet Uranus in the sign of Taurus, tying up loose ends, people are seeing us for who we really are, even if we don't mean to express ourselves in this way. These things are becoming more clear to our partners, our business partners, the people that we connect with. So this is giving us the opportunity to see through our mirror's eyes who we are becoming just by karma. We'll move forward to Scorpio. Scorpio Rising is experiencing this planet Uranus in the 7th house of one-on-one partnerships. Now, the 7th house is usually correlated with like your spouse or your business partner, but I like to say that this is also the place where we just deal with anybody one-on-one, like the people in our intimate space, like our one-on-one partners. Everybody doesn't have a spouse. Everybody doesn't have a boss. Sometimes we just have a best friend, and this can be looked at as our one-on-one relationship that might be giving us insight, that might be teaching us to move in a different direction, to express ourselves differently. And it doesn't necessarily mean things are going to end. Although when we look at the 7th house in traditional astrology, this was also seen as like the setting place where things are coming into an end or of completion. But with every end, there's a new beginning. And that means even in a relationship, there can be ends and new beginnings. A new way of being in a relationship can be from an end in a relationship. So for Scorpio risings, notice how that's coming up in your own experience. For Sagittarius risings, you experience this one in the 6th house of health of the physical body, the service to others, service to humanity. And our work, our daily work, or the efforts that we put forth towards a particular goal are taking a change. The health of our body may be taking a change. And these changes are not so subtle. They may start out as subtle changes because we have Uranus retrograde, but when Uranus stations direct, begins to move forward right before it moves into Gemini, these things will become more clear if they're not already strikingly clear. Like I said, this starts from the inside, especially with the new moon in Scorpio. Deep down inside, these things begin to well up into something that comes to fruition. So we can start now by being mindful of what's coming up. Let's move forward to the sign of Capricorn, who are experiencing Uranus in the fifth house. The fifth house is romance. Your love life can be correlated with creativity, all things creative. If we want to have kids, if we want to create a business, if we want just our hobbies to flourish. When we have Uranus in this sign, it's giving us the opportunity to be consistent in something different. Maybe it's time to focus on building a family, or maybe it's time to dial into that business we want to create. This is giving us the opportunity to plant those seeds, maybe for you, Capricorn Rising, getting into those groups that are going to show you where you need to be consistent. And let's move into the next sign, Aquarius Rising. So we're experiencing the sign of the planet Uranus and the sign of Taurus in the fourth house of our home. It can be our upbringing, our foundation, the family. Like, this is also the place of solitude, the place where we go home, sit in our boxers on the couch, feet up on the table, nobody sees what you're doing. This is that place where you can be yourself. So when Uranus is here, it's like flipping the table over, knocking all the food on the ground, everything's a mess, right? Now all we can do is pick the table up and start anew. You can't put it back the same way it was. That's how Uranus operates. It gives us the opportunity to be different in a space. So Uranus in the fourth house, it wants us to show up differently to our families and our homes, to maybe go somewhere else, move to a different home, whatever the case may be. It's giving us an opportunity to change. And this is coming up for you, Aquarius Risings, in a way that might affect your career as well. So let's see how this one comes up for you. And lastly, we'll speak about Pisces. Pisces risings are experiencing Uranus in the third house of day-to-day life, the short distance travels, like from work to school, from school to home, to the grocery store, the places that you frequent on a daily basis. It can be your neighbors, it can be your siblings. So the relationships with these people might be changing. It's important to look at the planet Uranus as it can also be seen as a planet that wants to communicate and be of communication. When we think about modern astrology, they say that Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So it takes on that communicative aspect, the want to be connected with others. And when this planet Uranus is tying up these loose ends, it may be preparing for a new way of daily life. So as a Pisces rising, understand that this may be the end of the way that you've been living, to birth a new way of living. And this brings our quick horoscopes to an end. Thanks for coming to learn more about the Uranus in opposition to Mercury. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be many more videos. Thanks for being here. This is Casey one more time. Until the next time.